I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Christopher Hastings gets it. This book was really good. And in my last video about this series, which was on number 19, I posited that Gwen-Pool was a stealth anti-SJW book. And there was definitely a part of me that thought that I was reaching, that thought that I may have been exaggerating some things. And that may still be true, but I have a lot more evidence for this issue. So this is evil Gwen-Pool. And I joked last issue that you can tell she's evil because she's wearing pants, and regular Gwen-Pool doesn't wear pants. But looking at it, there's more to it than that. She's also got this black lipstick that Diversity in Comics always talks about that seems to be on, like, a lot of the sort of diversity hero, especially female characters. A lot of them have this black lipstick, and they have the costumes that show less skin. In a lot of ways, and we're going to see it throughout this issue, evil Gwen-Pool is SJW Marvel, and regular Gwen-Pool they're just the people that like comics. I don't know much about the writer, Christopher Hastings. Unfortunately, we do know quite a bit about the editor and the supervising editor, Heather Antos and Jordan White. Heather Antos, so I don't think Gwen-Pool is ever without her mask in this issue, but she has a short blonde hair with a pink dip dye, which for years was the exact same hairstyle that Heather Antos is. Now, Gwen-Pool is an answer to the question of what would it be like if Gwen Stacy from Spider-Man was Deadpool, because that was what they were doing for a while. Gwen-Pool, the look of the character is very obviously based on Heather Antos, and unfortunately Heather Antos has been the subject of a lot of controversy. I honestly don't think that she deserves the hate that she gets. I mean, she's credited as an editor here, but she's really an assistant editor. And what does an assistant editor possibly do for Marvel? I've never ever heard of an assistant editor having any kind of pull within the company. I realize that they're trying to make her like the face of the company, and this guy, there's some grimy rumors about this guy. I don't know if any of them are true, and I'm not gonna say them. I'll let that lay. I don't think you should hate a book just because you don't like the editor. That's a weird thing. The editor has a lot to do with the final product, because basically the editor is responsible for telling a writer or an artist, no, you can't do that. So, I don't know. I'm just trying to enjoy this for what it is. And you want to know, I think evil Gwen-Pool here is? Evil Gwen-Pool is Nick Spencer. And let's get into it. So, when last we saw our intrepid hero. So, one thing I didn't know about Gwen-Pool is that, Gwen-Pool is a fangirl who just happened to find herself in the Marvel Universe. And her favorite character was Miles Morales. And I didn't know that in issue 19, because at the end of issue 19, Miles Morales saves her from some people that are talking about mind-wiping her, but then he webs her up and tells her he's going to kill her. And then he explains why, and he explains that in the future she becomes evil Gwen-Pool, and evil Gwen-Pool, ruins his life. And so he's trying to stop this from happening, and he sees, as far as he's concerned, the only way to do it is to kill the current version of her. But because he had to tell all this in a flashback, Gwen-Pool, the real one, could see his flashback, and so she was able to see her evil future version of herself, which means that her evil future version was able to see her past version, so she was able to enter the past, which is our present. So evil Gwen-Pool has mastered the reality warping powers that come with being a real-world character in a fictional setting. And at first, the two of them get along, and evil Gwen-Pool starts showing some of what the current version could do if she put her mind to it. So she's very insistent that she has to turn good Gwen-Pool into bad Gwen-Pool and show her how to do it. So we see her fighting the people that are trying to stop her, and it turns out that not only has Gwen-Pool mastered the art of her own powers, but she's also mastered the art of comic book fighting. And obviously Gwen-Pool here is just completely blown away by it. So then she just flat out kills the Doombot and a possible future version of the Sorcerer Supreme, but then she kills Miles Morales. Well, she mentions in an earlier word bubble that because these two are specific to her own book, they'll be relatively easy to kill, but Miles Morales can't. He's got too much continuity, can't really kill him. But then, as she explains later, basically editorial oversight kicks in, and Spider-Man can't die, so he just wakes up. And, like, it was all a bad dream. Evil Gwenpool basically points out that this isn't a real universe. She has the powers of a supervillain, really, more so than a superhero. So Evil Gwenpool is trying to convince good Gwenpool that all this is just kosher. That, this is they're just fictional characters. And she is in this sandbox. She's the realest thing there. So why does it matter? And Gwenpool doesn't really have a good comeback for any of this. Gwenpool doesn't really say that there's no reason why Evil Gwenpool is wrong. Not only that, it fits her dramatic arc, so it even sort of makes sense from an in-story point of view. So there's no reason why you can't just completely screw up the continuity. I mean, the continuity will always get saved by editorial oversight, if nothing else. So you can't really do anything, so what's the harm with messing with these established characters? And good Gwenpool just has this really, visceral reaction, which is that the reason not to do it is because you like the characters, you like the intellectual property, and so she takes steps to ensure that evil Gwenpool won't exist, thereby erasing her own future. It ends with Gwenpool. This kind of seems like it could be the end of the issue, or the end of the run, rather. She's just realized that she's kind of, in a way, she's sacrificed her future for these guys, and she doesn't really know where to go from there. But, yeah, it's kind of weird. Last issue, I called this an Anti-SJW book, and I've been watching a lot of these creators on Twitter. Gwenpool's reaction here is something I can relate to, because it's like, yes, these guys are fictional, but the emotional attachment that people have to them, that's not fictional. It's completely irrational, but it's not. It's still real in a way. So you get people like Nick Spencer, and you get people like Dan Slott and Tom Brevoort that are given the keys to all this, and they just do whatever they want with it. And it's like, do they have the ability to do that? Do they have a mandate to do that? Yeah, they do, but does that mean it's a good idea? No. There's a joke in here. Where is it? What does it say? Oh, here it is. So, Evil Gwenpool is kind of explaining the future, what she's going to do, the sort of things she can do. She's got this thing right here, this sequence. She says, none of it matters, so you might as well have some fun. Blackmail Daredevil, steal the Milano and crash it into Ego, go to hell and cut a deal with Mephisto, start summer events. You think Captain America joining Hydra is nuts? One day you'll get Eternity to do it. It's so fun. That, her saying that you'll make Eternity into Hydra. Eternity is the living embodiment of the entire universe. It's like all material, the entire material realm. Her turning Eternity evil is kind of played up like a joke. I can definitely see modern day Marvel doing that. It's like 2 or 3 years from now, when they've run out of ways to make heroes fight each other, what are they going to do? It's like, what if we turned them against the universe itself? Why not at this point? I mean, where do you go after turning Captain America into a Hydra agent for 2 years? The one issue of Secret Empire I read, it was ugly. I got the same ugly feeling reading Secret Empire that I did reading Age of Ultron a few years ago. And Age of Ultron, combined with them turning Thor into a woman, was like the 1-2 punch that got me to quit reading comics entirely. Like I said, I don't know anything about Christopher Hastings. I don't think I follow him on Twitter. If I do, he doesn't say much. He probably blocked me. I don't know if he's using the same block bot that Heather Antos did. But she gives a very interesting speech about why she turned evil. And it was that she saved a friend and it was used against her. And what's weird about that is that there's no discussion in her speech, in her 2 word bubbles here. She doesn't talk about good and evil she doesn't talk about moral good and moral evil. She talks about moral relativism. She thought something was right, everybody else thought it was wrong, and that was enough to turn her evil. And you kind of feel for her, but at the same time, it's like there's no discussing about whether it was really right or really wrong. It's just simply that she felt it was right, and so she couldn't stand that the comics universe couldn't handle that, and so she decided to rebel against it. So, rather than taking responsibility for her actions, she just turns evil instead. So this is kind of another thing. Douglas Ernst talks about this a lot, the moral relativism that has been... It's been in comics much longer than the SJW fad has. Because the SJW thing, that really only goes back 2 or 3 years, but the moral relativism thing, that goes back at least, I would say, 9/11. I would say that in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, they did some really thoughtful, introspective stories, and then they couldn't bring themselves to call a spade a spade. They couldn't bring themselves to talk about these bigger questions of what's good and what's evil. I've said this 3 times now. I don't know anything about Christopher Hastings. I don't know what his views on anything are. I don't know what his philosophy is. I don't know what his life experience is. I know nothing about him. It's very easy to read this as a book that is a screed against modern-day SJW Marvel. I don't know if that was the intention. I just know that in Evil Gwen-Pool here, I see a lot of writers on Twitter. I see their relativistic philosophy. I see their postmodernist view of the world. I see their just willingness to break things just because they can, just because they thought it was cool. And just because they don't really they don't think about the bigger questions in life in a transcendental way, the way that, say, Jack Kirby would have. Like I said, this could just be me reading into what I want to read into, and I'm certainly cognizant of that fact. But I don't know. This addresses a lot of the fan concerns. It's not about diversity. It's not about putting more women or putting more minority either characters or creators in there. It's about stuff like this. It's about getting Eternity to turn evil just because you can. And it's about this. It's like, can she do this? Yes, but that doesn't mean that she should. So, tell me what you thought. Tell me if you read it. Tell me if this is just a Rorschach test and I'm seeing what I want to see, or if am I onto something here? I don't know. In any case, this is Unranked Chevron signing off.